Hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Rogers with Idaho Naturopathic Medicine, and I'm really happy to be joined today by Cathy Cooke. She is a building biologist, holistic nutritionist, and certified electromagnetic radiation specialist. So, welcome, Cathy.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to chat with you.
I am very excited to chat with you, and not only because of what you do, but because you live in Boise. So I'm very excited to have somebody local that understands about the need for a healthy home.
Yes, in our modern world, we are bombarded with more toxins than ever before, so it's a very important topic.
It is, and I feel like I know there's more and more people talking about this, but when I first graduated and came to Boise, I felt like I was one of the very few people talking about this professionally and trying to get fragrance free. The concept of being fragrance free, essential oils are fine for most people, but not wearing perfumes to the office, really thinking about getting rid of fragrance in the home in general, whether it's candles or plugins or laundry soap. And I'm so happy to have somebody else that really understands this, and it's your job.
Yeah, well, we live in this hyper clean world where everybody wants everything to smell really nice and get rid of all the germs, but we know now that those aren't smart things to do. So yeah, it's unfortunate really that there has to be a career, that this is my job, but raising awareness one person at a time, that's what it's all about.
Well, I'm glad you're here. So can you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a holistic nutritionist, and so I've been doing that since about 2013 or so. And nutrition, all about the body and supporting the body nutritionally and supporting health. But what I found over the years and through my own personal health struggles was that the best diet and exercise program in the world isn't going to help you if you're living in a moldy home or exposed to excess chemicals or sleeping next to your Wi-Fi router. So that led me into the field of building biology. And so building biology is basically, it's the assessment of a home for anything that's causing health problems. So it's the fragrances, it's the mold, chemical off-gassing, poor ventilation, dust mites, excess growth, microbial growth, and EMF. And EMF is electromagnetic fields. So things like our cell phones, our Wi-Fi routers, cell towers nearby, fitness trackers, all of these things are creating health problems for a lot of people. So it's my job to go into a person's home and identify what issues they may have and help them to get rid of that or mitigate those problems so that you can live in a healthy home and be free of these problems that are causing you a lot of health symptoms.
Right. I've always thought that the home should be like a sanctuary, but if you're living in a home that has fragrance, you might like the fragrance. I have a lot of patients who love their scents, but you don't know that you're suppressing your immune system while you're doing it. And then you come in to see a physician saying, I'm not feeling well. And you wonder why you're always getting sick or you have skin problems. And it just turns out there's a few things that you need to do to clean up your home. It's not necessarily easy. And as you talked about the EMS, we live in an increasingly more technological world, and we've become more and more dependent on that technology on a daily basis. I mean, it's really rare these days for people to have a corded phone, but we're all having cell phones these days. And those are a source of radiation that we weren't exposed to 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And you're right that you do have to be ready for a little bit of a behavior change. But I find that that the fear around changing some of those behaviors is much larger than, it's much more scary than when you actually put some of these steps into place and you're like, oh, that was no big deal. I mean, having a wire to your computer, is that really, that big of a deal? People are afraid to hardwire their computers, but once you do it, I find that people are surprised at how easy some of these changes are.
Right.
and they make huge, huge impacts to not only yourself, but everyone who's living in your family or in your home and your pets. People don't even realize a lot of behavior issues with animals are because of this stuff too. So it is scary always to have to make changes, but once you start feeling better, you know, some of that overwhelm goes away, and I mean, why wouldn't you? You know?
Right, right, right. And I think a lot of it is because I think about EMFs as something you can't smell, you can't hear, you can't taste. Some people can feel it in their hands when they're holding their cell phones, but
Mhm.
not everybody. And so it's this silent, insidious radiation that we're getting every day. And with 5G coming on, that's even more. Can you talk a little bit about 5G? I don't want to get into the whole politics of that, but can you just talk about what 5G is and
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
sure.
concern?
So, so right now, when you use a cell phone to call or text or, you know, make your connection, it is connecting to probably a 4G antenna off in the distance. It could also be a 3G antenna. There are still 3G antennas off. And let me back up a second and explain what that means actually. So we're talking about generations here. So the first generation was back in, boy, was it the late 70s, early 80s maybe, when the first cell phone was actually able to work, and it was connecting to a tower somewhere. And it was those old huge brick phones. That was basically the first generation of cellular technology. And then in the 90s, we had 2G, which maybe allowed us to send a quick text. And then 2000, late 90s, early 2000s, we had 3G, which allowed us to do texts, maybe pictures. There were some phones that had pictures available. And then 4G came along in the 2000s, and that was all about data, emails, surfing the internet, downloading videos, um, you know, more kind of a computer based, you know, your phone is now a computer. And so that's what we're on now is 4G, the fourth generation of cellular technology. So 5G then is the fifth generation. And it will be using what we call millimeter waves. So on the spectrum of these EMF frequencies, we're kind of going up the spectrum because we're running out of room on the lower end of the spectrum. So we're going to be using millimeter waves, which are smaller waves, and they don't travel very far. And the reason that is significant is because since those waves don't travel very far, in order for it to connect to your phone, it must be very close to your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see these 5G cellular antennas in residential neighborhoods. That's how they work. So, you know, right now in Boise, there's applications for them to be on the sidewalks and your street corner kind of thing. So it's the proximity to these towers that we're mostly concerned about. You're going to be very, very close in order for it to work. So we're going to have these millimeter waves and the 4G antenna, because there will be both on these towers. So you'll be exposed to both of those, and your devices will be using both of those frequencies for data, mostly for data, downloading movies and things like that.
So, and then because we are electrical beings, I mean, we use a differentiation of electrolytes like sodium and chloride, magnesium and calcium to pass through gradients in our cell walls to make things happen. We do use little microcurrents in our cells. These other types of microcurrents or waves or radiation can affect us. And I think that's my big concern. And you have some information on your website. There's also information out there if you Google about microwaves and things like that. It does affect your health, and it can affect behavior. It can affect your immune system. And I think it is something that people should be concerned about. And what's really nice is that you can come into somebody's home and not just measure so full disclosure, you came into my house because I really wanted to see what was going on, and found out like my keyboard and my cell phone were putting out all this radiation, and also my light bulbs, which was really interesting. But these 5G is going to be one more addition to all of that. in our homes.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned, you know, that the body is an electrical being, because like you said before, you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't hear it. Then it's very, very difficult to come to terms with the fact that it might be affecting us. But being that the body is an electrical being, well, of course, these are non-native electromagnetic fields, and they do interact with our body on a cellular level. And you know, I found personally, I do have symptoms. They're not nearly as severe as a lot of my clients are, but if I have too much exposure, I get anxiety, I get insomnia, tinnitus, ADD. It's not pleasant. But I noticed that mineral balance is a huge piece of the symptom relief and mitigating some of these frequencies. So that speaks to the fact that, you know, you're talking about the body working on electrical signals, and those electrolytes so critically important. And I would argue that, you know, the overwhelming majority of Americans are deficient in all of these minerals, right? So that just adds to the problem. And so, yeah, all of the devices in our home are contributing already. And then we're just going to add another layer to it, which is what I'm most concerned about. However, I will say that what's happening in your home is the most important piece to tackle, because even if we do have an antenna close to our homes, you're likely getting a bigger exposure inside your home because you're closer to the device. So it is important to know what's going on in your home and not to give up, because I have so many clients that say, well, what does it matter if I have Wi-Fi on in my house or I use my cell phone, because all of my neighbors have Wi-Fi, and that now I have a 5G antenna outside my house. And that's, I understand that line of thinking, but it is really important to understand that it's all about the proximity to the device. So if you are using a Wi-Fi router in your home, you got to manage that first, and then we'll worry about all that other stuff later.
And I have to say, full disclosure, when you came in and showed me all the things that was happening, I've started to make changes. I've turned my cell phone into airplane mode most of the time. I've gotten my iPad into airplane mode as well, unless I need it. I've hooked in some earbuds that now have air conduction tubes rather than going connection all the way into the ears. We've changed out the light bulbs back to incandescents rather than the really power conserving LEDs. They're great, but you showed me it caused lots of dirty electricity coming through the wires and into the home. So your assessment has helped me change my the way we do it. And actually, we are in the process of wiring the home as well, because we were using a Wi-Fi. So we're figuring out all those connections and crawling underneath the house. There's no basement, so it's all under the house.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's great. I'm so happy to hear that you're putting those steps in.
Yeah, and just seeing it and how much is happening, that your service is so needed for people to understand that there are things you can do. Like I thought my house was pretty clean. There's no fragrance. We've done all that sort of work, but you definitely showed me there was mold in the bathroom. Your lab test came back in a few days. I was really impressed with that. And I've started recaulked the bathroom and changed everything out. And luckily there wasn't a huge problem with mold, but there was a little. So I'm very grateful for you doing what you do.
Awesome.
So is there anything else that you do in the homes that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, well, you know, the air quality piece and the EMF piece, those are the biggies. But there are other things that really can impact your health really on a subconscious level without you knowing about it. So some things that are always kind of in the back of my head when I'm in someone's home, especially like in the bedroom, because that's really where I focus most of my time, because we want to sleep, you know, we want to rejuvenate and recuperate at night. That's more important than anything. So when I'm in the bedroom and say I see a stack of work, literature for your work or textbooks or things like that, or I see clutter in the bedroom, or, you know, things like that, which I know are going to cause you poor sleep, because if you lay down to sleep at night and the last thing you see is your textbook and your work, you know, things that you have to attend to for work, you're immediately going to work mode, right? Or you've got clutter. It's really amazing how much that affects you on a subconscious level. So, you know, to extend the EMF and the air quality, like you said, we really want our homes to be sanctuaries. So I'm looking for all of these little pieces as well to make sure that people feel comfortable in their homes, that it's pleasing to them, that there's not clutter, and all of these things that are causing this kind of low-grade subconscious anxiety. Because as you know, as a naturopathic physician, anxiety and stress, they're the killers, right? I mean, we could do everything in the world to make you feel good, but if you've got this underlying stress and anxiety, it's going to be, you're going to be spinning your wheels. So it's those little things. It's really about creating a whole home sanctuary, so that people can feel good about where they live and be, you know, feel healthy and calm and relaxed and just feel good in their homes.
Right. And right now, you know, during COVID, that's really important. And hopefully when we're out of the COVID situation, the home will become the sanctuary we come back to, and having that place that even if you've been at a grocery store and gotten a little dose of fragrance going down the detergent aisle, or if you've had stress with a coworker or a deadline, that you can leave it at work, come home, your home's your sanctuary. It's clean, it's non-toxic, and it's a place to relax. I think you're absolutely right about all that. A lot of my patients do have a lot of stress and anxiety, and it can be mitigated, but there's work that you have to do yourself. You have to recognize it, and then you have to implement things, whether it's a good sleep hygiene or finding ways to relax every day. And as you said, you know, those are important, but if you're always having this exposure, then there's always going to be a little inflammation and a little stress to the body that you're not even knowing about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, well, this is wonderful. And you actually see people around the world, right? You're doing
yeah. So, you know, there's unfortunately not many building biologists out there. And so we travel. Yeah, I mean, I get calls typically around, you know, the area, Oregon and Utah, sometimes Montana. But I will go anywhere for a person that needs this kind of service, because it's really, really important. So yeah, and we do remote consults as well. You know, sometimes there's a lot that you can do without, you know, myself or another certified building biologist, with, you know, before we even come into the home, especially now with COVID. I mean, you know, we can get on a remote call like this with Zoom or Skype and really start to mitigate quite a bit, even at a distance.
Well, that's nice that we have this tech, that if you're hardwired in, you have less exposure.
For sure.
Don't do virtual over Wi-Fi.
Right. Exactly.
Well, Cathy, this is wonderful. I'm so glad that, number one, you've taken the training, and number two, that I know you and that you're in Boise, and I love that you're a resource. So what we'll do is we will post your website at the end of this video, and I understand you write a blog.
Yep, I have some information on my website, a blog on both air quality and the EMF piece. So quite a bit of information there.
Right. And we mentioned mold a little bit, but mold is also one of those insidious immune suppressing things that can happen in the home. So just a little tidbit: if you do have water damage in your home, you want to get it cleaned up within 24 48 hours. You want to, if it's been there for a while, you do not want to clean it up yourself. You want to get a certified mold contractor in there to get that out. You want to get it tested as well, so you know if you've actually cleaned it up after the fact. So there's a lot to do with mold as well, and that's a huge subject in and of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, very important for people to understand.
Yeah. So, okay, well, thank you so much. I hope you have the great rest of your day. And is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that was great. Just thank you very much for, you know, what you do and helping to spread this very important information. Very grateful to be here with you today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I will be posting this on your information at the end of this video. So have a great.
You too.